Welcome the viewers to the 79th Energies of the Days. We're a little bit later on because Alexander has so much to do. We don't manage to meet so often. He has to come here. People who ask where's the Energies of the Days would be now the time. I just have to say them. We cannot do exactly according to the real date. It doesn't always work on time. So this week in Allgäu and Betzigol, the All-Star Congress is a nice event. The son of David Icke, Gareth Icke, will be there with his band, and there'll be books and videos from David Icke and many interesting presentations. All-Star Congress at the 3rd of October, also over now in Allgäu. You got some dates? Yeah, there's one date that has confirmed. At the 20th of November, that's on a Friday, so if this Friday the 20th of November, or if it isn't a Friday, then the Friday that's nearest to the date. In Stuttgart, before the Neuzeit Congress, Ways to Freedom, and this time you could also give a hint to this event. There are interesting talkers, speakers, Andreas Popp or Dagmar Neubronner. Maybe I'll also come. I'm invited for a short, quick speech, but it's about freedom in general. It's about ways, pathways to freedom, and it's very interesting. Yeah, and the day before, on Friday, there's a chance to meet with me a whole day. We found rooms there. What we do, we'll summarize. There are many things that get into motion right now, and from there the importance of the single subjects changes according to the circumstances a little bit. Yeah, that we will see in the news today. Then I shortly want to mention donations, because we rely on donations for the rent of the studio and driving costs that we all have. And the translation is for free, voluntarily. I want to address it for the viewers that you announced. It's not something that you can just, this big subject, you cannot just so talk about that. I know you cannot talk about this yet. Do you know when you talk about that? Yeah, this is really not a marketing trick or to get attention, but it's about that there are more aspects that come together, and if you pick one, yeah, you could that, but then the whole picture couldn't get visible. And only when those puzzle stones get together, then out of this arises such a dramatic picture that leads to a total different view, that then certain structures not only are questioned in a way as we do it here, but that people in a superordinate form get that we are held under control much stronger. And this is something that is not only wanted on those parts where they don't give up this control, but they support that and they take care of that nothing happens here that maybe could weaken the system. So here there's a little clue that one or the other could get them into motion. There had been centuries ago certain cleansing actions to prevent certain knowledge. In the context, we get many old informations now in a totally different view. And I'm always, I'll give clues, little clues together. The one or the other may combine them also today. And, even if you find news yourself, then it has a much bigger quality for you if you discover something for yourself. If you say, I really get this, it's much more worthy for you than if someone else delivers you a possible picture of many. Only with the security of having proceeded in your own finding process, you can note the quality. And also from this reason, I can imagine that time gets ripe for this, and this comes to consciousness anyway, and when the signals come, we'll be the first who pick up the subject. Yeah, so much about that. We start with the energies. I think everyone senses that they are very unrest. Everyone senses unrest where you look people worry and sense that there's an unrest. Yeah, that's a situation, and that we realize that the stage is reconstructed, very fast, and that reactions arise between during the reconstruction. To see this picture as an analogy, what we see at the moment is strong changes. There's something reconstructed very intensely. We will sense the effects of that for a long time, and we sense that things increase in dynamics, and many things will approach us which will affect us directly. Many things come together now, and this has every level, it's according effects. Yeah, you could maybe estimate there are certain dates with symbolism, the 13th, the 11th, or the 23rd, and then people said, then the crash would come, or people said on Monday the banks would be closed. Who is in the internet will find those dates. And how do you interpret this? For me, the impression is that what maybe was predictable once or plannable, it would have gone that way, that they maybe had staged some event to those dates, but those powers are insecure if they would push this through. This would be my interpretation, that maybe it doesn't work according to their plans, and so those data don't work anymore. So those multiple hints to certain dates that we got in the last days. This just spoke of the blood moon. There we should point to that. Signs that have a certain need a certain interpretation, that they get their quality. So without us giving those dates a certain quality, those hints would be very much weaker. Yes, such a moon for itself has an own quality. Every full moon has, but at the moment maybe very much visible and very impressive. But this interpretation that comes to there, they show very nice, as you said, that those sovereignty of interpretation got lost for certain parts. Maybe some structures won't work out in the planned form, but I can't really say that. It's something that's possible. But without doubt, on those dates, certain ritual processes are still held. And for certain groups they have a special quality. And of course, each day has its own quality. But this assertion, those qualities that they want to push through, that's partially more due to ideological concepts than true magic quality. So some people may have a motive to they need those data or dates to make their history or their story present, or if it fits to a Christian, Jewish model or into a Freemasonry model, it has to be a certain date. But if it has really on the ritual level the strongest energetical date, that's another question. And I distinguish very strongly. We experience at the moment tremendous energetical moves. Maybe 2 sentences about this, but they are not really according to this proclaimed date. Maybe in earlier days it had worked more, or they had imagined, this was our power that we make it on this date, something big happens. And possibly the more this gets to the public view, that people watch this, and those whole signs and symbols, that before they'd shown us because they thought, people won't get them anyway, that this doesn't work so anymore. I got 2 news that fit to how insecureness shows also in public. This is 2 public speaks. This is once the president of the American note bank, Janet Yellen, had to hold a presentation and lost grip and left the stage. She didn't know anymore what to say. She just finished it. It's uncommon. There's a video on the internet. It could be a sign that energy, that she is self-conscious to stand. We proclaim now what we intend to do with the money, that their insecureness would arise. The second one, Joe, before you get to the second one, maybe this example, because it's in a good way to point to those changing qualities. It had very strongly in the media transported that the Fed would raise their interest rates, and there are many resulting thought process was spread. So like, oh, it's a sign economy works again, but this of course all nonsense, and it would basically impossible to raise interests without at the same time creating a big collapse that is somehow still just now happening. Here something was expected that didn't take place, and before I remember Greenspan and Bernanke, they had big attention to every word of them, like made a science out of this. Had he said it this way, and the last way he pronounced the word slightly different, what does this mean now? And in reality it's highly ridiculous. And here we see, from my view, also this ridiculousness from there, that like a doll that is wrongly driven, like a robot, this worked. And it's similar we've seen with George W. Bush. He started in a sentence, always for a new, and after the 12th attempt he just stopped and said it's over and walked out. These things happen now also because they are, so to say, like a Freudian slip, bring the truth into light, from which kind of jerks who are not able to formulate their own thought process and should not do this, who are represented. They represent in a highly cynical way how our system indeed works, and on whose shoulders it's built up. There a little bit fits the BMW boss Harald Kröger. The presentation at the automobile exhibition collapsed between two BMWs. Short news, it shows, are those energetical things that they sense? Don't they have the energy anymore to present their things and to stand for them? Are they weak? Yeah, absolutely. Because if you see pictures how Miss Merkel at the moment looks like, then you can see a woman who's not really well off at the moment. And she doesn't represent strength, but as another expression in the face. And from there you can everywhere see those energetical qualities, and we all are strongly shaken front and back, including those who think that they write history, but in reality are just one pen more that draws the picture to the paper. And what we can see here shows the stress and the loss of control. Basically, we have more examples of this. We see it everywhere. That on the one hand, they try in the media to row back if certain things get too much resistance. At the other hand, that ideologies are pushed through with enormous violence and defended. And the insecureness you sense. At the end, we see how does the viewer deal with that? How do we deal with that? Is there a short clue that you can give now? Because many people now are in unrest and sense this unrest. How? We said, just watch that, but don't make it your own karma. Yeah, I think two levels that are questioned by everyone who deals with the subject once. It's first the visible level, what does approach me now, what does happen to me, and out of this level spoken where I am as a human being realizing, experiencing myself, and things touch me directly when now fears come up for people that some who have been relaxed some weeks ago. That's unoverseeable. Also when I speak to people, to friends, to known ones, then it's obvious. I spoke to a man, there are free asylums for refugees in this village, and those people are very obviously seen in public, and people are insecure. They cannot push this away and not tolerate this away on the one hand. And on the other hand, those are the values. It's the values that are endangered the time in an incredible speed, and my own protection and my own space and my own place that I have to preserve for myself. It's very present. And to that I, for example, offer for the members something in the weekly or 2 weekly turn, because so many things happen. Yeah, I do something new to the direction of podcast, because this you could maybe a little bit record a little bit better. Live stream would have been a certain time that brings me pressure, especially when I'm on the road very much, but it has to be very concretely and free for all members. German, don't think I'm going to translate that, with to be able to listen to this with a test account. And there's a background rights for members, because I think it's very important that certain things shouldn't be shared in a measure that you just pass things on inflationary, but think of who can stand which information or interpret or get the information. Really, many things they can speak, many things to be pronounced are politically not correct, and we are strongly in the next months witness that we here also get certain pressure, so that our freedom of opinion, of that they still speak, will be constrained strong. And here we have to protect ourselves, and we can do it wonderfully via this association, because we have terms where it stands attention, things are for you personally, and by this way you can share things that you couldn't share otherwise. So you just have to take care of how you do it, and this is planned this way with me. Yeah, that things approach us and are planned. Yeah, I don't want to give a big answer, but the second part belongs there. You asked, how can you deal with that otherwise? That's only the one part, that things that touch me from the outside. Things that are important for us, ourselves really, is the access to the true being, that's not touched by this outer circumstances, but is only witness and always will be. This quality in us makes us strong. It shows us the indestroyable in us. And the contact to that we have to pronounce, how to speak about how we can find the contact to that in us. Because it's there, but it has to only be touched again. And it's good help to say, well, on the outside, even if it's an illusionary level out of a certain view, it's also important that you for yourself find the courage, that you claim your space, that you get clear, that you make yourself free from this heavy influences they push to you, and to find the ground, to find the important that's important for you, and that your own stability gives you power. That's enormously important. Yeah, and at the end we'll maybe talk more about that, because it's so important you correctly address it, that we remember who you really are, like infinite consciousness, and not this vulnerable body that finally is vulnerable, and many people worry about that. Yeah, and the body has to get those tensions, and we feel tense to be just to everyone. It's made impossible for us to do so. It's not the lack of the single one of consciousness, but it's something, they demand something quite impossible from us. If you should perform impossibly and be in desperation to not deal with that, then you're enormously under tension. Many of those examples are useful to point to that. Those are hints that partially serve to bring us into this field of tension. So each news we bring, you should understand with the background, they're not for making unrest with you, dear viewers, but to see there are things set into motion that will touch the ordered structures that we No, and this can be worrying, but you should get conscious and stay with yourself. Let's go to the news. Maybe we should add one thing, because to add to what you said, we experience real attacks. And I want to point to an old interview you led with me, the subject about children's world. Do we live in a childish worldview that's very, very fitting now, like the video with about guilt. Yeah, these two would be my favorite because they point to those structures. They are only in German. Those structures that we are held in certain structures, where the father says to us, or the mother, how it's right. And those structures we have to leave, because that's very important. So in my Satchit Ananda YouTube channel, or in Bewusst TV YouTube channel, those interviews there, you can find them in German. I think if you understand what basically is there to be found in information, that many of those we discuss here would be clearer. That we should be kept
Ja, ich habe natürlich das Flüchtlingsthema ist total wichtig und groß. Ich muss sagen, ich habe vorhin gebremst.
The subject of refugees is big. I at the start held a little bit back, so I have brought chaos to my papers, but I have to look up once again. I brought this news because it's maybe a good entry for that. It's news from the Welt, and the former inner minister of Germany says we lost control. Former inner minister Hans-Peter Friedrich warns of 10,000 refugees that unregistered arrive in Germany. No one knows how many IS fighters would be amongst them. That's news from the Welt, and it's warned. I have to bring this news first because it contains an incredible lie. It's not that we had lost control from the view of the politicians, but that they created, or we created, this state that that's there. And they don't want control. I remember Joschka Fischer, in his time as inner minister, those border officers, he advised them to control no one. And in this time, many, not only illegal immigrants came to the country, but very criminal circles that have organized themselves and are robbed near the border, and the border police was forbidden to control this time. So here are interests that are obviously so much against our own imagination that we cannot perceive them. Those interests are there. So the human being that's is pretended to be in a democratic system and imagines that politicians are doing things for him of best consciousness cannot see that, because he's conditioned not to see with which evilness they act. So when I say that, it's a very complex subject, and we at once in the next step to be not totally misunderstood, to point to from where do those who come now escape. And that's the thing that Merkel just prolonged the sanctions against Syria, so made the life more difficult there, and then wonders, no, she doesn't want. And you said it seemingly. She is wondering seemingly. Really, she is not wondering at all about that. And what the Spiegel magazine told us in the last weeks, I was shopping with my wife, and when I saw the title page of the Spiegel, I had definitely no hunger anymore, because or no appetite anymore. They presented Mrs. Merkel like Mother Teresa, and Mother Merkel was above that as a hint to her good willingness. So what we see here is in a ridiculing way presented the way that you have to look away. But many people believe that. Like Mother Teresa, you can also question her of being the good woman, why she had been sadistic, and those people who in Calcutta were with her were deprived of painkillers. She had Christian imaginations that fitted into the Satanist concept into some structures where it's a cruel subject. I wouldn't have addressed it here, but when you said it, and it's good that you said it, those figures that are presented to us, if it's a Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, who had tortured people in a bad way, or the Dalai Lama, who, as a representative of the Lamas since centuries, has caused suffering in Tibet, and structure against women, like an aspect of the Buddhism with a totally different, connects to a totally different structure, then we realize how certain figures are presented to us to push certain interests through that lie behind that. And if you question those figures, you can often experience the opposite of what they embody to the outside, especially if they have there's too much hype around them, like Mother Teresa, where we set some clues. It's obvious for the views. You said, what? To look themselves, there's another side to everything, and you can research yourself. Although it's interesting, not everyone gets the same search results with Google. Maybe I can find much more if someone else searches for the same term, because Google maybe, according to certain algorithms, chooses who gets what results. So it's not that everyone who Googles the same or searches the same gets the same results. That's you have to say too. Yeah, Google today has, where the sites you visit, the possibility to give certain ads. If you're interested in a certain subject, then you get this ads everywhere. And it shows that on many parts we have chances of technical natures today, certain ways, if they're on the physical earth or in the internet, to follow up with and to push the idea of control through. But back to the subject, we see with this headline, we lost the control, seemingly resignating politician. So with the first sentence we brought into a wrong direction of thought. He has everything done to lose this control and to create clear chaos. That's a big idea behind that, to bring chaos to the system, and this happens with long planned and evil willing planning that becomes visible in many parts. And everyone who is in these structures, brought into these structures, they are victim of the system, if you want to say so. Even those that are with big promises promised out of their countries, this is also happening, or those as a cannon feed brought into a giant problematics. Because why isn't it a better approach to give the people a living worthy home? This is a question you could put, but you cannot put it if you take care of yourself that this home is being destroyed, and this does the so-called federal government as a NATO partner, as a prolonged arm of the Americans, the British, that carry the chaos in those countries. And the seemingly loss of control that shows when border police do their work, then such things come up, like a container. They found a container with weapons for the refugees. So in Greece there was a container opened. There's a video of that. There are many such news. A container full of arms for so-called refugees. And they opened the container with helping goods, and they found weapons and arms. Maybe by accident, maybe because media normally don't report such things. So in many parts that there are no controls anymore, this is still a fact. And weeks ago we heard the news, oh now there will be controls at the borders. Maybe here this clue in this point, they try in between to change the picture. Not that much, so we open all dams, but we try to bring a little control into this. And B, we realize, we have to pretend to be slow at the moment. This happens for calming down those people. And what really happens, those controls that happened are fast, and in those in many parts no controls at all are happening. But what I read, meanwhile, they went so far that if people fly inside of Europe, they have bigger passport control. So it's about the many critical people about the situations, then show that at least they are controlled now to provoke this impression. It's a farce and a theater play. So that's the news. Basically there's nothing to be read. You could, but it's in fact all that you could read here. It's nothing more like a play for the children's world. This news here, it's indeed very symbolic, as I mean, even if it's from the 7th of September, so some days old, but it's very current. Maybe if you read the news, NTV, we already live in another country. Exactly, this is consistent here. That's where many people worry about, that the country we know probably will rapidly change and will change even more strongly. And we have to only ask, who owns this land? So up until now we could easily answer this question. As a lawyer, this becomes more difficult now that we have the subject nationality, laws on the own land, rights to the own land. So here a land is opened to other people who don't have claims or rights. That this has to become clear to us, and we get a situation presented that we, and that's the big headline, should tolerate. And tolerate, we often mention it, means being able to bear something. We have to bear that. And there's a new society presented to us. And I got some interesting papers for this. Here, my wife found it in the letterbox. Wake Up, that's the Jehovah's Witnesses newspaper. We have an older lady who is always very caring, gives us those papers. And look who here in the edition is shown. You see some people in the background. Then please show it. The watchtower shows another society than they did before. I, as a young man, after I ended my studies, I worked at Höchst Chemical Company and worked as industrial merchant. It was very clear to me I wouldn't do that very long, but I stayed so long there until I could learn certain things in the department. There was a department that in the areas where Höchst produced products, they had different packages for the products. For example, in Africa, headache pills are unpopular. There's headache powder, so it's the same effects, but it's as a powder because the Africans more want this powder and don't buy pills. So packages are presented in different ways, and other pictures are shown. In Africa, there's an African man shown, and in Europe the average European, and this is changing, and you see it here in the overview for the different pictures that are to be seen, also from the watchtower that had also line in the letterbox. So we see this is the new society they present to us, and they want to get us used. So I first say it without criticism, but only as a hint. These are pictures they show to us here from Lidl Prospect, and here you can show this picture. You see the society that's presented to us. So that's what they in the USA see since ever. So it's mostly an Afro-American that you can say politically correctly. It had been correct word. then often maybe an indigenous one, maybe a Native American or an Eskimo, and then an Asian, and of course a white one. This means they want to represent everyone, and behind that there's the thought we are all equal. And that's of course in the highest measure nonsense, because even you and your brother, you are not equal. So no human being in the world is equal. We have some basic qualities that connect us. Everyone is totally different. We are from different cultures, and those cultures are in a high measure important for us and important for those that find themselves now in a new culture and they very consciously are left alone. And I want to point to something that is presented to us in the USA as freedom, as freeing up. That's the war that Abraham Lincoln had led, the Civil War. And here, it's interesting to use this term, the Civil War. The Civil War has, and it's conveyed to the Americans, they had freed up the slaves, they say. It couldn't be more senseless. There had been rich parts of the states, the so-called southern states, they were very rich because of the cotton, for example, and the northern states were there very much in poverty. And problems they didn't found, but they created problems there and prohibited the southern states the slavery and the cotton production, and they wanted to step out of the Union. This led to civil war. But what I want to point to is the movement of the blacks from the south to the north that happened to them. They said, now you get to the north and you be free. The slaves were important workers for the south and partially were treated pretty well. In the north they were treated very bad. All that we find in ghettos now in the USA is from this time. So all that's sold to us as liberality that doesn't take place at all has to be viewed at least in the place where it's very older. And it would have been very more humane to be helping at the side, that people where they have their home, to find life quality there and better circumstances. And this is not only not done, but all there is being destroyed at the moment by the USA, by the NATO states, by the Federal Republic of Germany and many, many other bandits. And there those refugee streams are being set off and led here, and they make a political correctness that seems to be against racism, but it's totally ridiculous. It's in the highest measure racist. And what's up, there are smileys, and their smiling faces, they're normally yellow, and they're in certain skins tones. Although yellow is certainly not for the white ones, but this is an expression of racism, so the smileys are now from every color. But white ones are not there. Of course not, because whites are always racist. And so I have to criticize you, Joe. You just said something racist. You spoke in skin tones, and that's racist too, because the term skin color or taint colors means bright skin. And there have been critics that the skin tones, the term, is racist in itself, because that we experience here is the purest form of racism at all. Because always when I turn things polarly around totally, they lead to a perversion of the same. And that we let us to be presented here as in a highly measure racist. And there is one country in the world where the situation that we find strongly here doesn't take part at all, and this is Japan. In Japan there's no immigrants. Had never been and is not taking place. There are very, very little foreigners, I say, in Japan that live there, as well as, yeah. And this is from my understanding, because they tried. The Japanese as a culture, on the one hand, had been very introvert, and the own culture is very much appreciated. In the countries where there's no singular, no own identity or culture anymore, and we don't understand our culture when it's before our nose, where we can walk through German cities and find German culture of the past. And this, I mean, the past long before the past they always present us, that had been only a short time span. Then we have hints, but this culture totally goes disappears, and there's no resistance for that. And it's important to realize your own space, and many things are done now, and the refugee streams are abused in a big scale. You pointed to this with the weapons. There are other groups being brought in too, and in Munich there is there's a conference for human traffickers now. It's sponsored with EU means in Munich now. And there had never been a rule of law state on the other hand. But this appears in many news I brought with me. I have to say, meanwhile, there will come structures. Don't say it now. I know what you want to say, but think of if you would say it. You don't have to justify yourself. We don't have to distance us from anyone who means to reinterpret what you do to those people you cannot reach anyway. And those who mean to hold up and express their pseudo good mankindness by being very pervert, those just have to run into emptiness, because it's very ridiculous in itself. And I am of the opinion that we cannot pretend or cannot do any more than to point to things that are there. And if someone wants to put it in a drawer at once, what we say, then we cannot make it our problem now. So I'm agreeing with that. I couldn't have said it better. So I have a news that's under the headline Ridiculation, and it gives a new entry into the subject. The Welt newspaper, we are again the standing up country of Europe. And always when the Welt says we have to be careful, because then they make themselves common with the reader and throw to the reader like a bit, but it's a ridiculing, it's an old bone they throw to us. So the same is like we are export world champion. This means we deliver goods to the whole world and get nothing for them. So not only that you don't export nothing, but what they sell us as a big thing is so we are the standing up country in Europe. Germany is admired for how it deals with historic challenges, the building after the Second World War and the German unification, and it could be the same again with the refugee crisis. So they say we are so cool and so great, and we could be so proud. And you see Willy Brandt, the old chancellor, and you see a refugee where he cleans up the street with the broom. So children's work, and in a very bad way propaganda is made here. So what we see here is propaganda. When we see Helmut Kohl raises the hand as like a reunification, what they had really made of the German reunification, you see in many parts. If you see the Gauck office, how many people got money for themselves out of the... And this refugee streams, many people make money out of this. Here, those common suspects earn money in an incredible amount. And there we have to say something about that too. The stand-up man. Can I bring news from the Handelsblatt trading paper? The mayor says he has fear that people would march against us. There is a case where asylumist from Libya threatened a supermarket employee with decapitation, but this incident has no influence on his asylum procedure. And here the inner minister of the country, and he wonders that someone who goes shopping with his gun doesn't go to jail. and he just gets to another home. And I think it's a SPD party mayor, and he says the population doesn't accept and understand such. You could say many things about this, but they don't understand it. Yeah, before you want to say much about this, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to jump in this part, because the sentence he said, they don't understand that clear. He's just too stupid. He cannot see the whole picture. Please, dear mayor, you don't understand anything of that. You said it yourself. And now step back. Not as mayor, but step out of the focus. Don't put those questions of the way you don't understand anything. We are children, are treated like that. It's very clear. You don't have to understand things there. We see that us at once, a giant problem is shed to our front yard, a problem that's been consciously created in another place. This has been conscious to us. Those refugee streams don't arise by accident. They have to say 3-4 sentences. People have a short memory. Yeah, I have to shortly add, the mayor, Thüringen, will constrain this German state of Thüringen will constrain the free opinion, because mayors shouldn't speak up freely, especially about the subjects. They have to be careful what they say. So it's an obvious instruction for them, yeah, that they shouldn't say some things, and this mayor still could say something like this in the news. So here's they want to deprive the children of someone if he has an unpopular opinion. And in Facebook, if you multiple times become in Facebook things like intolerance and write something, like they deprive you the right to care of your child. Yeah, I have it here, but I want to point for those that don't remember, for example, why from Syria such refugee streams come. Remember, the Assad regime, like you say, it had been before a partner, Mr. Assad, as well as the preceding Gaddafi, killed in a cruel way. They had been partners and took care of good living circumstances in their countries. Libya was the richest country in Africa, and there was for everyone health insurance, and hospitals worked for free. You could study for free. You could get cheap conditions for a house. Every child that was born, I think, got 20,000 euros as kind of greeting money, and this is obviously not wanted, because it shows that such things are possible. What they explain us is impossible. Us is explained we is hard work to things to get better, but they work hard and things getting worse, and in emergency case they bomb things down. We have the additional situation of the so-called Islamic State, about which chaos is brought into all those areas, and we had the subject here, that English special forces in certain optical uniforms as IS warriors had been photographed, and that American special forces had been recognized amongst the mask of the IS fighter, and that in Turkey thousands of fighters are being trained, and the boss of the IS openly in London lives inside of the city and can reside. All these things, they could switch them off at once within a short time, but here, with a big effort, terror is brought. And we have to clearly see that terror is brought to all European countries, not only on this level of that we speak right now, and those refugees are being abused. And those refugee streams that are created here are, and this is an important clue, are pre-selected before. Many young men come to the country that, with a promise, you can get your whole family after the time. These are wrong circumstances, and they find themselves in certain camps, And consciously, this is provoked that we see as religious tensions. So many of those things are just being made and had been longly made such long time ago that many don't remember anymore. And this belongs to the view too. I have here so many news that I have to assort a little bit. This one I like especially because it's so nicely absurd. Daimler boss Tschetsche, the refugee wave could provoke a new economy wonder in Germany. So the German Michael is presented here that we could be glad that those people that come here as workers into the country, that they pay the pensions later on. So that's here, of course, is able to be seen through, and they vomit it out without any substance, and many parts they present this to people. We have here not only we have such decrease in births that we will get a big problem. The workers are not are missing. Why don't we educate them? So the question is so absurd. We are the dense populated country of Europe. Finland has the same size in Europe and has 2.5 million people, and we have 80 million. So the Finnish, how did they manage to survive up until now? That's a big question. So what we get presented here is so absurd and so incredible that basically you stand speechless before that. And this only works because they have to explain, you don't get this. Here are experts, and here there are intelligent physician, Miss Merkel, who permanently thinks how you can do things. This is kindergarten for children that haven't heard the bang. What we indeed find here is a ridiculing. We are mocked and stupidified that you can just ask how is this possible. And this is those who still have to believe this have to finally wake up. And the waking up requires courage, because the alarm clock has long before rang. And those who still close their eyes because they don't like what they see are here demanded to really stand up. Here you go. Yeah, we had in between the news, I had it too in another show. It's an example that a school very quickly from one day to the other one has been changed to a refugee home in Lübeck, and the headmaster said you have to leave the school, and on first day their tank battalion came and had changed the school to a refugee home, and the headmaster was didn't like that. And but it's one example that many things will approach us where they just search space, or maybe houses are depropriated for refugees. Yeah, and we speak of depropriation. That's basically wrongly said, because we have no property anyway. It's just all changed like they wanted. And interestingly, I just talked about Japan. In Japan, there are no depropriations of houses. There are highways that lead to around certain houses, and it's impossible in Japan to depropriate something. They cannot depropriate real estate, and the depropriation here that takes place, it shows that so Japan is also a colony, colonized by America, and here, as a clue, as a hint, here, until this, they go up until the schools. It shows how they act. And I bring this news now. German economic news. Merkel agrees. USA stations new atomic bombs in Germany. So as a story in between. So who they serve here and who has not gotten it. I have a wonderful article brought along with me under the headline, "Is Merkel insane?" or something like that. I read it, but if you read what the writer writes in this blog article, then you can note that he is incredibly naive. Is Miss Merkel ripe for psychiatry? This is a blog underweltonline.com, and he describes, and this is no criticism at all. It just points to that he asks, doesn't she see it, doesn't she know it, how can you explain it to her, and that you need Russia, and that she maybe has prejudice because she's from the East. And the big problem is, if you move on this level, you don't understand anything. You are just bigger in confusion. It is all nonsense, and it is well meant, and as so often, well meant is the opposite of well. And I know people who written a big letter to Mr. Gauck because they think he hasn't understood it. Of course he has. In the evilest attention, they are in lodges and so on. If you cannot see this, all that you can derive is wrong because the basic assumption is wrong. And the basic assumption bases on the children's world. In the children's world, Miss Merkel is good and just misled, and she actually wants to do good, but this is all nonsense. She does exactly that, point to the point exactly what she should do, exactly and instantly. And if she wouldn't do, she'd be replaced. And what we can see here shows very obvious that this part, the illness, this naivety, the petitions are written from the people that brings people to write letters and on those levels to deal with things and energetically to cause friction and not to get that this is only a scenario. It's nothing more but a theater play. Very, very important to get this. So actually, I think this belongs to the basics. There are certain things that you can just pre-assume when you do such shows, watch such shows here, that you know there are secret lodges and where they conclude which politics are made, the Bilderbergs of Freemasons, and the politicians just do what they are told to. No matter if CDU, SPD, Green, Left Party or politician, that has to be clear. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, of course. And that's also for parties that go newly to the plan, like AfD or whatever they name. Possibly they start with the best intention and then they are being submerged. The system controls itself always at the same parts. The doctors are controlled over their chambers, like the lawyers, like the tax advisors or the attorneys. And there's this certain power given out. This power is controlled, and that the first it's controlled about the common ideology and common directions. That's about school and the studies. If you have other views or develop other views, you strongly consist that you don't get your bills and don't get your grades and support. And exactly out of this reason, all is brought into a driving direction that is wanted, and then those structures are made. So it doesn't need a big conspiracy that seems to be very complicated, but it needs always small cells and structures that control themselves and supervise themselves. And then at once everything becomes very insightable. And the important thing is the thought and ideological control that we ourselves make up between our ears during the time. We are all not free of that. This has to be conscious to us. So here's the real question, who we are really. It's so thickly packaged behind walls of a concept that we made for ourselves. It's not for the others, it's also for me. So I'm from childhood on, I've taken on certain things. This is the way you do, and father is this way, I want to be this way or not this way. And I've taken many things from my father and my big brother, so we built up things that we are not ourselves actually, to be able to function, to protect ourselves. This may be sensible because the fear to be hurt is there as a child, and it's understandable, but the posters, the blocks, blockings we did around us are different to notice. You have to be conscious. It's a difficult process to see what am I actually really, what have I taken over without being conscious. And it's not easy, but it's important to, at the end, go to love yourself. But for that you have to know who you are. You're wonderful, and I have to can confirm that. the difficult question, who am I myself, sometimes can replace them to another variety, who am I not? So what doesn't fit anymore? What do I because I'm just used to it? What do I do because it just gets over well to watch the news or to think? There's no criticism. It's very decisive. I want to see this. You said this has to happen. I say even it's inevitable because it's the prerequisite for our own development. So first there's the involvement, so being involved and entangled, and then to develop yourself. So the process, it's the first noticeable levels are for people that are further, it's no subject anymore to say I know it for long, but at the start those levels are as well challenging. And if you go more to the inside, then you see bigger challenges because more incredible things come up. So at the start you say, well, this is strong tobacco, that the representative is not for me but for the industry. And later on it's for you, it's self-explaining because it happens everywhere, and there come other levels and they are more difficult to digest. And this is why we get to contact now with big challenge, huge challenges. Many experienced it in the last weeks. What does happen here? And who does this? And why? And it's so obvious. And now the red flannel comes at levels where they had cuddled very much, where the alarm clock had ringed more often already. A short answer from me to be noticed, it's here in the Welt newspaper, an article about why the refugee crisis escalates now at the time. So there are answers offered by the media before the people possibly ask too many questions. There comes at once an answer that's useful to answer all questions and to break, to make silence again. So here, as a teacher, I explain you why it is, and then it comes a more or less sensible explanation, and then the subject is over now. No discussion now. Now the Welt newspaper has spoken, and now there be silence, please. Because the winter will come, dear Joe, and this is why many things, many people go away, people have the hope would be better. This is why they come now. It has very little to do with the measures against those countries that they can find there. And here, due to history, after the Second World War, there was also a big refugee stream. This was the Jews. The Jews that from Germany, for example, then indeed that are left, they went to other countries, and no country accepted them. They shouldn't go to France, they shouldn't go to England, to the USA, they were not allowed, they were only allowed to go to Israel. So here, people and groups were brought into certain directions where they wanted them to go. And here is a directioning. We want certain groups in a certain drive them to a certain country. Germany has opened the doors widely when others have closed them down. England is also always a special case. It has a special position in the EU and is always the moralist finger for the other ones. And here I have a better example for other ones. Obama wants to take more refugees in the country. The USA take more Syrian refugees than it was planned in 2000. 5,000 up until now, and now the explanation why not so many. But still the number is very, in relation, very low. In the relation, the fear having a too big of feeling guilty when they would take too many people. They feel they would admit too many people that they were guilty of bombing them out of their countries. That's wonderfully pervert in a way that the West couldn't describe it better. This is exactly what the Pharisees, the Christians, I call it perverted. Yeah, it's but our guild, they present us so often, so big that we say we accept all. If they're from Syria, which guild do you say? There are many guilds. Yeah, our German historian. Which one? It's important. Yeah, is it a Hitler subject, or I think they present this one to us. Yeah. But there are meanwhile other movements. They say this is the equalization for slavery. Yeah, and this could be. We get many Afro-Americans that come now. Interestingly, in Prussia and in the German Empire, slavery was forbidden, where in England it was legal. And of course in USA still, but under a different description had taken place. And to ask, to give those hints that the one or the other maybe doesn't know. But bringing the guilt feeling inside. But we, from historical responsibility, have to take the refugees here. These are always those that shout very loud. And here I've got a way of children's world opinion making. This is such a bad thing. Unfortunately, I printed it out very little, but I describe it, and we'll link to that. I think Marlies will find it. That's a hint to people who don't watch today's energy so long. After some time at Conscious TV, Bewusst TV, we do the links and the text. Bewusst TV, BEWUSST.TV. It's the German text. You can translate it via Google, and the links to the articles are there. And Tagesenergie are the energies of the day is called. You can now see the links with the time codes. Unfortunately, not on this YouTube. Some links get invalid after some time, and they vanish again. The summary of the 78th show you presented, you sent to me, and I'll link it in the next 2 days, but it's much work. So here it's about a picture that's shown in the focus, and there's on this picture, this photo is a riddle. What's obvious, and the headline was, children discover the special in this photo at once. You also discover it, and then you see a picture of a railway station, the track where people stand and wait for the train. And very in front on the right, I'll show you the picture soon, you see two kissing women that embrace themselves, maybe two lesbian women. And there it's very present, and it's interestingly the point where automatically the eye, to many people, fall, where the view falls. You see it in the website, you see a commercial, it's in the right lower corner. It's very effective, so this is human nature. They see, everyone would see it at once. But this isn't the obvious thing, dear Joe. Obvious is something else. So here's a man who is very in the behind and the middle. You have to view twice there in the middle, and he incorrectly stands on the yellow line. So you have to stand behind that. And here's the interesting thing. Little children, they know at once. The man who stands on the yellow line is not allowed to. And this is interpreted as wisdom of the child, because the child has not this prejudices. The normal man sees this women and says, oh, two kissing women. But in reality, the child, that this whole process is not subdued to those processes and is free and has not run those programs. Of course, it's in reality nothing but a form of perversion. The pseudo-intellectuals like those things and find it very interesting. But indeed it's a mocking and a stupidification. So I brought this picture because of this. Maybe can we show it? It's very little. You see it. You see the girls in front, and you see a man behind the line, and behind the man in the shadow there is someone standing on the line. And the interesting thing is this picture was at Facebook. This is more pervert. I can put something on it. This picture was put in from a man at Facebook, and then many thought he was homophobe, because if he would put the picture in, he they suspect he would have against his kissing women. But what people have programs in their ill structures in the head, he sets it in, so he would maybe mean that, but I would be able to have to see something else, and then that's the exaggeration of the oil. The man is justified. No, I'm just pissed off by this man standing on this yellow line. So I'm not only ill, but I'm also a bureaucrat and a P counter, and I'm proud of that, and that our children are stupidified in a way. So it's never worse. So please, no, don't buy Focus magazine anymore. Don't buy this newspaper. Focus newspapers, hide them in the supermarket. This stupidification shit, and it's unbearable. The same for Spiegel and Stern magazine. So it's very horrifying. Please go on and complain about how horrifying this is. I want to bring in here an emotional quality that reaches the one or the other more easily. I'm very much at peace with that, because it's always that it happens on both sides of polarity. If you see these absurdities, it's a healing process that is itching at the moment, and this is good. You want to say something? To the IS, you just mentioned that USA reject that sanctions for IS. That's interesting. So the IS have a list, the UN have a list of sanctions against the states of the world that where terror is coming from, but IS doesn't belong to those. USA, no, it's not a state. It's not a state, but it doesn't belong on this list. Now, a hint. Last time, Joe, I mentioned Islamic State. It was ISIS, it was a marketing agency, it's not good. IS, Islamic State, discredits at the same time all Islamic states. They all have to do with that. Iran is also an Islamic State, so they could throw them wonderfully into one pot. That those structures itself they created, it doesn't play a role. The same with Taliban and co. It's also for those that easily are being used for those subjects. And for perception, I brought this, a report where a Polish man, Kamil Bolonis, has a blog. He describes how he, as a traveler, encountered a meeting with refugees, and it seems to be important here to be able to note that he on his Facebook said, "I'm world citizen, I'm homosexual, I'm left," and he writes globetrotter and gay. So you could say he is someone who is fits very much into the new structures. He is probably no right wing. He is no skinhead. Because I want to say this, because if you address certain things, that the drawer into your put goes open. And he says that he is a travel leader, went between Italy and Austria until the national park High Tower, and he saw this invasion groups, and he says, despite of all solidarity that I feel to the people in a difficult situation, I have to say that what I've seen is terrifying, and it's of cruel wildness. I regret to have to say that. And they tried to smash the windows of the bus. They threw shit at us and hit the doors that the driver opened. They spit on the bus windows. And this is what's terrifying for those people that say to them, we are all equal. It's a very childish, we are all human, as if this would be automatically always a proof for that there are no evil people, and there are, and that's in this time very incredible information. There are evil-minded people, And this is so alien to us, strange to us, that we are not want to recognize that there are psychopaths and that there are people who have a different consciousness quality and that they have their space, because all varieties, all aspects of being are being found expressed here. But it's no good idea to bring them to each place, and it's no criticism at the singular, but the criticism to politics that takes care of that we, by a totally perversion of the individual qualities, brought into a totally absurd truth, reality, and this is like a big awakening call for many. And there are many reports from helpers in camps and for refugee camps or from police. It's totally different than it's presented. It's dramatic what happens here in the refugees' homes and the surroundings and criminality. I don't say it because I have anything against strangers, but it's a reality, and it is this way, and I know that such reactions come. You cannot prevent them. You cannot prevent everything. Because I just want to say it because I don't want to say to you, especially also to the other ones who mean to justify themselves. You can push your standpoint through, and you can accept always that there are people who have another opinion, and what they call opinion is in the reality something taken from others, something taken over from others, another view. We all are ill in the way that we want to adjust ourselves and to give up our own identity, and we are really creepers in many parts. It's no good idea to live it furthermore, but you need a basics of values that you want to live for yourselves and that you don't question. And if this gets to consciousness, we are in Christianity, they say, hold the other cheek if someone hits you on the one. And some say we have to admit decapitations, and some say untrue women and gays have to be stoned. And I know there are many Muslims who live in peace. It's no general judgment to those, but there are people who have other imagination about cruelties. There are sexual harassment, and there are cultural differences. Yeah, that we just have to ask ourselves what we can find there, so that we can see reality without having to say, oh, it is so, but it's not wanted this way. But the reality is that's what's the reality and not what they say to us. And many things that we bear today, it's only possible because we already adjusted so much. And this story here fits here from the Welt, ridiculation in its purest form. It's interesting. McKinsey recommends mass employees of Germans. They found the solution for the Germans who cannot work properly should be it's a satire. They've been deprived of the nationality by the satire. It's only recognizable those days when you write satire over it. That's a hint, and it's a hint that fits really into what they always once again present to us. And even if satire stands above this, there's many true aspects. And basically, if to say the whole workers come to us, that we of course would have more unemployed ones from calculation. Interesting, isn't it? But it goes in the direction of satire. I have here we find expressions of changing energy. I have from the Welt refugee tracks, what travelers should know. The trains, the special trains are not enough. So first, the German railway used the regular ICE for transporting refugees. So the paying passengers should exit and the refugees came in there. So the headline is we have to set priorities. It's very clear. And what's described here is what you should have to know as a traveler. It doesn't mean everything else, then that's the way it is. And he has explained that you have no claim to your travel trip. And they say, well, you can get paid something and you can use another railway connection. But those things are not questions. This is nonchalance conveyed to us. And if you think about it, it's an enormous intrusion without being discussed and declared a new fact. Yeah, maybe they take an ICE train, and because I book such a train because I have to go to an important meeting, but this is more important. I have an info as conclusion for the first worldwide first climate refugee has not being brought back. This home country, and there I am. Kiribati, his home state, consists of corals that only some meters above sea level. That the country once will be sacrificed to climate change, it is set. Still, the man doesn't get asylum. He wanted to become climate refugee, but he hasn't made it. He had wanted to have asylum in New Zealand. Why I brought this news? It fits into this movement. It's a little bit ridiculous, but it has this strange formulation. Climate refugee on the one hand, and on the other hand that the country at once will be subdued to the climate change and the rising sea level is set. What a strange formulation, is set formulation. So we speak here again of climate change, of that they pretend that it's really an absolute truth. And we are guilty above all. CO2. Do we have a big CO2 level here at the Conscious TV show? We have not measured it. Maybe you should, that we get a certificate how much CO2 is here exhaled. Yeah, CO2 is a big business, and this reaches Volkswagen. They have an enormous weapon with the CO2 subject to control industry by setting values. And those are two levels, two hints. The CO2 part in the air is incredibly small. 0.03%, they say. So I heard once it's 0.003, but maybe this isn't right. However, it's a so low part, and the man-made part of this is also 0.0. And even if we have no clue at all, if we say, I say it expressly, we have no clue in which combination this value is with the climate. We have no clue. It's a religion. And with the help of this worldview or this assertion, everywhere where CO2 gets produced, they can do things and intervene, and so-called laws be made where they intervene, if it's automobile production, if it's the way how motors work is in the whole world. And they can from make stocks out of certificates out of CO2 gases from cars. And this is great, and this in the business it arises as value. And there's in no way it's very much about a threat of climate. It's about the creating of a new system with can create debt and guilt wonderfully and intervene. And this is a clue. It's a very, very complex subject. And then I'm finished with this long clue. I remember as a boy when there were spray cans had been forbidden, FCKW, the ozone killer. You remember that too? And the fridges had to be changed. The patent of DuPont was off, So DuPont had been the biggest producer of FCKW, and all refrigerators, all spray cans had brought money to this big company, and then the patent was over, and everyone could produce FCKW, and then they stated it's harmful, and then a new patent came from DuPont, and this became prerequisite. So here we see you're a fool if you cannot see that. So the subject refugee, it's maybe they bring the subject climate and refugees together, but in the climate subject is not about clean energy. Free energy is of course not brought forward, or that you can build a water motor, although I'm convinced that in water is so much power that you can build combustion motors out of this, and 1,000 other inventions that are tested. And it's not about that. It's not about to bring electromotors forward. So Germany doesn't do it at all. You addressed Volkswagen. You have something about that? Yeah, I'd like to conclude the refugee subject. I have some things that I put them interesting things to the side, but this they sent to me, and because of this I prefer it a little bit from the Fulda newspaper from the 17th of August. It's a little bit older but very current still. Here they explain what to do if friends post something racist at Facebook. What if you consist something? What is racist? You know, it's what's not wanted. Then they address this. We are indeed a step further. Meanwhile, they demand that people who leave such messages at Facebook, they get loss of their driver's license. You read it? So this is an inquiry of a political organization. They want that people that are too intolerant at Facebook, they get deprived of their driver's license, and that they can do it without court trial because it's not right. And here we are a little bit not that far. Here they recommend right extreme and racist people who use Facebook against foreigners. They should be indexed, and then we could help them. They could first try to speak to those people, and what we can do is to be against them. But if it's no other way against the Nazis, then they have to do go other steps, and then be calling courageously for our wonderful democratic society. Yeah, you really have to say there are racists in the negative sense. They hate people who have another color skin. But it's not about that. It's everyone. The people who are real racists, they serve a little group. They would totally lose their control power if they would get no resonance anymore. Also, this is a form to be against it, and you can wonderfully you can channel an angel that plays on a harp and put it in YouTube, and you get some thumbs down just because here it's a possibility to be against that. Yeah, the color skin was brown, whatever. And if it's golden or from liquid manna, my dear, it wouldn't do anything. I want to say it obvious. There's a wonderful chance to be of opposition a little bit, and this is dealt as a secret in our society. They converse the imagination. If you do everything right, everyone loves you. Strauss said everybody's Stalin is everybody's fool, and he brought it to the point. To the refugees, finally, I want to conclude. Berlin, there was a luxury real estate was claimed, and it's interesting that this is in a luxury quarter of town. Here it's about the historical house Riemers Hofgarten in Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg, and this luxury house was seized for accommodating refugees. What does this mean for the neighborhood or the value of the houses? All these subjects, those questions arise now. People experience, for example, that now in Hamburg, that in the luxury area itself, the Gulf place in Blankenese home is planned for refugees, and the one who who owned the house for $1 million isn't sure if he can sell them for $1 million now. You can discuss it away, and in this part, to relax the things a little bit, to conclude it a little bit, want to end with a little joke, the subject, if you want. There's a story, a man, an actor, an American actor had a noble house in the best place in Beverly Hills, and he sees one morning out the window how his neighbor, a little, not that very luxury home, a black one, and he is unthinkable, and he waves him friendly, but he's not really. He's very curious what happens in the next days, and the worst thing happens. This man builds the home, updates the home, and has a bigger home and a bigger pool, bigger tennis court, and the house is totally reconstructed. And this now the neighbor buys the same home, and both he upgrades it also, and they talk at a barbecue party. And the originally habitating white one said, well, yeah, now I reproduced my house too. No, he said, no, my house is very much more worth than yours. And he said, well, our house is identical. The other one said, yeah, but you have a black one as a neighbor. And this is something that, in a way, brings the truth to the light, that it's not to be discussed away, and that only with a headline racism. It is a fact that the structures of the society are to be found this way. And who looks a bit further can notice that those scream the loudest, those have created those structures and then on evil purpose and extend those structures now. And this success model exported always more. And who is here naive and doesn't want to see that, who will be the more confronted with that, what's here should be pushed through. If it will continue this way, it's the next question, but it's a perfect game where it's almost only losers, and where everywhere people get deprived of their own roots, on the one as on the other side. Let's put it to the side. I could add things, but this subject would get such a big dominance. And basically, but it is dominant, and I hear it with many people, maybe also you. It's a subject that moves people, and not because they don't like people that have another colored skin, not at all, but they really worry about life, how it should continue here, and that it's clear into which direction, but we hopefully will make the best out of it. Yeah, many things get into motion, many things change, and we experience worldwide enormous changes. I had here 3 news about the subject racism. So here's one, for example, from NTV, and it's what I addressed. Courage is no color. So when I say skin color, it's an incorrect word, and here it was clearly explained. If the word is reinterpreted, I don't know, so skin form is called bright skin, whatever, this has to be changed. So stop gypsies, food and schnitzel. You could laugh about it if it wouldn't be so sad, because it happens in a way here that makes us blind for what's actually meant. So in the last show we talked about universities in America where it's not possible anymore to freely discuss anything anymore, because at once, as soon as a word means a microaggression, so they don't even say something against any minorities. Such a word, or just the color of the skin, to speak this out, it's enough that people get angry and say this could be meant racistically. couldn't speak freely anymore, and this is the end of opinion of freedom of opinion, because no matter what you say, it's enormously important what you say, and this has a very stronger and much more relevant level that we can watch there, because language is always also a fiction of the thoughts, or these are expressed thoughts. And if you control your language in this way, then the next step would be that those thoughts would follow the new concepts in language. This means that more thoughts become unthinkable, so a scissor in the head is there at once. And it will at once not be realized as scissors, because automatically things come. And certain thoughts are not carried out anymore, because all is predefined in a certain structure. And we already have it. But we don't have it on those parts where we at once reinterpret the language, like George Orwell 1984, new speech. We have it already. We have it in incredible form, and who looks around can easily see that they sell to us as anti-racism. I mentioned it once, is expressed racism in reality, and that they sell us as protection of minorities is the suppression of the majority. It's enormously important to get that what they sell us as a protection of minority and make it and styled as a high good goes always hand in hand with the suppression of majority. All stands on the head, and they have to adjust to the minority, and that they say at the same time it's a democracy to us, and this isn't real. It shows that we can shows the single one that he can't understand reality. He needs the experts. I don't have much anymore now. Go on. This here is enormous. Training for the serious case is the headline. Escape helpers from politics prepare their own escape. You heard it. A German elite unit regularly trains to bring politicians out of German areas of unrest and to bring them out of the country. So we have special forces, and here it's news from COP. Special units have to be prepared to bring other important personalities in concerted secret operations quickly to certain goals of escape. The rats leave the sinking ship and let themselves fly out. I remember at once Honecker, the former GDR president, and his wife that flew out first class. If they today, Honecker is dead, they say at least now, would it be still today this way? The system doesn't let its staff, their representatives that would ensure the next make unrest in the next generation. They obviously let them escape. Could it be soon this way? You talk about the news. We have feared that the people march against us. They said that's the point, and there are bunkers everywhere for the elite and the whole world, or places at the rim of the world where people bought much land or real estates. That's it, and they prepare for that because they know that the bow is overspent sometime and people will return maybe against them. This is the clue. This is mentioned in the article, that also the big industries, pharma industry for example, very, very strongly profit from the profit stream, refugee streams, and those interest communities are to be want to be saved if the people know what's done to them and what happens here indeed. The deprivation of laws takes on incredible forms, and from this reason the clue, I will say more things. This stands in front of the door. So here news before Volkswagen comes. Here's a summary of that, what happens at Spiegel Online to be read. Maybe you want to read it. Crisis in front of us. The world goes direction of bankruptcy. Obvious words. Spiegel Online. World turns direction of bankruptcy. The following week, the Fed could raise interest rates. Maybe that's from 1 week. it's 1 week before, 1 week even more. After 7 years, the area of zero interest would end. 7 years, that's the 7 fat and the 7 low years from the Bible. Maybe there are things. Experts warn debt, bankruptcy would approach us. Here the clue: before at the stock markets, they just played this. They presented this scenario as a proof of economic strength, the zero interest policy. And then before it is so far, and better they let it be. And in reality, it's a declaration of bankruptcy. So the truth is misinterpreted, and the people got used to that, because they cannot raise interest levels. Then the energetical supply would collapse. We see it everywhere. Everywhere's energy is safe, and this Volkswagen fits to that. Downsizing at the motors, diesel motors, that always more strongly because of the gases have to be constrained in their quality, and the motors are getting a problem in the cars. You can see the new motors are in the statistics clearly recognizable weak point in the industry of the cars. So the cars didn't suffer from motors in the last years, more from electrics or things, but now the motors come back, and this hangs together with that there are measures that for technology are counterproductive if you stay at combustion technology, of course, only. Yeah, we addressed the electrical car. General Motors had the EV1 or EM1, but they couldn't buy it. You couldn't buy it. You only could rent it, and then they made them. Although they perfectly worked, they put them back again. And you can see in politics, when politics decided to lower petrol consumption, then it went down. But politics didn't stop demanding, and the consumption level stayed in the same level then. So they showed that politics can. So I want to point here to children's world, seeming world. It's about, in many parts, to give new impulses for the buying, and they are put in order to by several ways, new models, new technologies that they offer. But indeed, it's an enormous waste of resources visible. And here we realize that also in the car industry, there's a trend that is downsizing, so motors get smaller. So there's, for example, also a small BMW and with a 3-cylinder motor, and from many 6-cylinder models, for example, the 2.8 liters motor that had been a 6-cylinder, it has become a 4-cylinder with a turbocharger. They want obviously save resources on some parts. Also here it's about basically to make bigger profit. It's not only about the consumption, you have to see the whole picture, and this is at the rim only. Isn't it an attack at one company with Volkswagen to a national or supranational? So we experience economic war here, an economic war in a perfect form. And Volkswagen, and I want to give some small points that I couldn't follow, but that are really a clue for me, an index for me. Volkswagen is longer under attack. You remember maybe that they had there's an argument between Piech and Winterkorn, the two managers. Wieck, the former chairman, now retired, was very in friendship with Piech, and they wondered why Piech was so critical, and it looked like Winterkorn could pursue his line. But now, after Winterkorn went out of Volkswagen, the family Porsche and family Piech went behind Winterkorn and left him in an important holding, and he plays a big role at Porsche. And now they stand behind them. It's very strange. I was of the opinion that also then certain claims, the Americans then call it blackmailing. We want money. You earn money. We want money from you. And if you don't pay that, we will get that. This happens in many levels, and who wonders about that? I want to point to the NSA affair. That's so far gone that you almost cannot remember, where they consisted that especially the big companies are all spied on, and that from the side of the American secret agencies they have enormous influence to the companies on the whole world. Here, what we can experience here is no accident. And what the headline here is transported expresses it dramatically. Here, the Welt writes, Apple can can buy Volkswagen now from the Porto budget, and they you press a button and at the same time money decreases. Apple, who develops the car itself, could pay BMW, Volkswagen and Daimler in cash. It's interesting, you can put up the question here, what does Apple produce? What does Apple produce? Yeah, I would say computer, mobiles. In reality, Apple doesn't produce anything at all. They lab produce. They have licenses. They don't produce anything anymore. This is important. This is enormously important. So they are maybe like America. They produce zero. It's produced in the foreign countries under bad conditions in China. And put the people like in cages, and then the results from there, what comes out very nice, is not a production from the house of Apple. All that's done, it's outsourced. There's an agency for the marketing accountable. There are legal departments, and there are areas that later are done through the shops or license partners or franchise partners. This means that we can see now plays no role if the company has substantial values. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that substantial production can even become a problem because it leads to responsibility. So Volkswagen, BMW and Audi or Daimler, to see them equally and say Apple can buy them from in cash, it shows how the how the values lie. And we see at the same time investors from the foreign countries buy them, and you could be misunderstood easily if you would like to preserve national interests or say them you would be right wing, but who does not get that here's an economic war taking place already will be surprised when he sees and the structures dramatically change. It's happened in the whole world. It's not only fought against Germany. And it's interesting that he has not compared with American car companies, then maybe the comparison wouldn't be so good because they wouldn't have the same economic standards that they demand from Volkswagen. So these are values that are demanded according to a thought construction. And this, I want to point to that. And the second thing is, everywhere there where the USA were, if it's the Philippines or Vietnam, a disastrous state of economy, ecology is to be found. So those who wants to be the cleanest one is makes the dirtiest standards, and we see it's grotesque. Basically, it's very extreme. But here we realize that what comes from this side is being passed on willingly. So it's not. It's in another article. Who doesn't? Limit his Volkswagen motor endangers his admittance, and they have to repair the cars for different motors, otherwise they wouldn't be admitted on the road. 2 million people with diesel cars, Volkswagen, and they show the Germans, look, those are the pigs, maybe you cannot drive your car anymore. The question, what went really wrong here and what actually does happen and what price pay we and the whole world because we want to follow American norms that are bala bala, and motors that are not sustainable anymore, motors that have to be repaired more often, motors that suffer in their efficiency. This is without question taken on, and you cannot are not allowed to say that they look more and more dirty, and that there comes so much there comes acid out or radioactive substances that don't smell, but they come out of every diesel car. And to say diesel is especially dirty is also nonsense. Yeah, I want to point that diesel is the domain of the industry in many parts, and not that critically dealt with that, but the final customer, they don't want the final customer use this technology, and that there are developments that we don't know in the end. But you said the freedom of movement to constrain it. Everyone who maybe uses a Volkswagen diesel that doesn't have a permission anymore. Yeah, and the cause is maybe the diesel has wrong values. This wouldn't be a cause anymore. They say it is so, and we're done with it. The next thing is that Audi comes up with the same subject, or Porsche belongs to Volkswagen, has also many diesel in the program. You don't perceive it so much, but it is so. And BMW is in the focus of the same group that Volkswagen. The American who uncovered this is called John German. It is much better. John is generally what we say the typical German. John Smith is like Max Pattern Man or Joe Sixpack. Those are the hints that give us an obvious hint to, and I want to assume something here. I can really imagine that at Volkswagen, before they built in such a computer program, they talked to the they made a deal with the authorities or whatever, and this is a clue, because it's an immense effort, and Volkswagen had anyway to do with two old subjects. The gas pump is one subject, or other technologies that at once approached Volkswagen, and this comes from the same direction, from demands. They demanded much from Volkswagen, found a solution, and from my view agreed that solution, and now at once they pretend if they would be surprised. I remember in this context the so-called attack of Saddam Hussein on Kuwait, where they said at the end, the USA said to Hussein, we won't do anything. And this is okay if you take over your old state, whatever they told them, sold it to him before. And if the one taps into this trap, then he accordingly will be brought to reason or put down, and in front of all depropriated and killed. So Joe, it's a little bit on the next to the thing. Here's the news. It's interesting, the news from the website, lawyer website in Germany, Anwaltsauskunft.de, and here it's racism and children care. So the discussion about refugees has nice but shocking sides of the Germans. So here it's typical German to be especially against foreigners. Well, for me, two nations are friendly to foreigners. So it's one, Syria. Syria is very friendly to guests, and then very quickly comes Germany, where they very try to adjust. And accordingly, you only need in the holiday country to visit an enclave of the English and see that it's not so common everywhere, but they say it's a typical German quality to be against foreigners. So many people are openly or against or demonstrate against asylum homes, and this can cost people on Facebook not only friendships but also their jobs. So here very clearly, if you don't function, you'll be brought out of the system. We'll have the news later. The fight against cash money goes to a new round. So here we are very need the goodwill of the system to supply us with this money. They could switch it out via the press of a button. And here, can this have effects on the care rights for your child? This should interest mother and fathers that are that the ex-partner of the children is against foreigners and gets conveyed the wrong values. So we can be glad that we always know the good values. So here, indeed, they point to that it can be possible, and a constrained care can be very, and the last, they deprive them of the care rights for the children. So these things are being discussed as okay by the lawyers. Some lawyers agency, and 70,000 children are taken away a year from the parents, and they make big business this, and the children in the homes are not doing better than at home. So in the least cases there's something good done for the children, and then this recognition comes very lately, and this fits here. There's a news that looks like Bild newspaper, and it feels like a little bit disgusting. Court says 18-year-old Bulgarian man does not go to prison, but gets 80 hours of work, and he had in 144 cases sexual abuse of children, and this had been proved. 144 cases. And here they of course understand him, because otherwise how is it if you're against Bulgarian people, anti-Bulgarian, it's something very evil, so we better let him. It's automatically, that's the interesting thing, it's automatically a tolerable deed because a Bulgarian does it. If a German would have done it, it wouldn't be the same way. I can't imagine more racism. I cannot get it, and I cannot get it for other people. You just have to get it when it's so far, maybe in the next incarnation. Then this form of stupidification is sometimes not tolerable anymore. I just announced that the subject money comes up again. Bank of England. Abolishment of cash money is necessary. That's the headline. The Bank of England sees only one means to be against the next recession. With negative interest, the savers should be brought to spend money, and it is necessary for that to abolish cash money. It's Andy Haldane, the chief economist of the Bank of England, who says it, and experts here prepare us, and it shows in the headline obviously about who it is. The Bank of England sees only one means to defend themselves against the next recession. So intentionally we only can defend ourselves this way, and you all have to participate in it. That's the headline, and here the subject is presented to us newly. And I here in a unfortunately actually effective form brought it with me, so there are always more constraints in the cash money traffic in Europe. This is some months old, the news. I just brought it up again because it fits here. Here they discussed that, for example, in the amounts are limited. In France, for example, it's up until 3,000 euro had been allowed to pay bills in cash. This is reduced to 1,000 euros. Tourists may maximum bring 10,000 euros to France, and French don't have to are not allowed to carry more money with them. They can basically we see how strong our energetical insurance, our energetical supply for that we ourselves taken care of is always then cut off when we could get by that a little bit more autonomous. But this is not wanted. We should all be controlled. This is the news. Then I brought that. Wait one moment. I brought this. A bad thing. I don't know who sent me this. Horrible. Why Bild doesn't print pictures today? Here is a Bild newspaper without pictures. The power of pictures that they show us. And an empty newspaper. I brought it because they subversive information seems to give us, because they say those pictures are so important, because they show us things. Yeah, they show us what the Bild newspapers wants to show us. Who chooses those pictures shows what I can go to a party now, and you say, man, I'm really looking forward to this. And I say, man, Andreas who gives the party throws his party as an idiot, I don't like to go there. And Jen will say, well, I cannot, please make photos for me and take the camera for me. I choose which pictures I present you to confirm. It's a bad party. Yeah, I can present everything to you. And what's objectivity here is brought with it. It's nothing more but a form stupidification approach. And I hope that the one or the other Bild newspaper reader has thought about that. Yeah, I have short news about that, and I'm glad about this. Sometimes you got something about the Pope? No. I can show 2 pictures. I don't want to comment them furthermore. I think here you don't have to say anything to that. There's this picture, I know, there's a child, and you can see the finger of the man on the right side. Yeah, you have to touch the child, of course, somehow, but this finger is not that well. If this is an accident and you maybe show the picture, it has more. I seen it at Facebook once. On the one hand, there's interesting because it shows the Pope in the combination with the whole thematics. Where the Pope, on the one hand, is with the child, and the man in black, on the other hand, you described. So here many different powers play a role that can play together. So this is important. And there are many clues. My visit in America, he was in visit in America, and this I showed again what signs we have to do with this. There are many signs that in the America visit here done, and but this Pope not. This is the only a good. Where I shake my head and think how naive the people are. We always have to remember that the big, how I want to say that the big pillars of the system, on the one hand, what the government, what we call governments, what we call the legal system, the military, but on the other hand also the so-called state national religions, all under the same roof, subordinate to the same roof and serve the same structure. There is no state religion that stands up or is against this structure. So all national religions serve this concept, and all representatives of these religions serve the more, the higher they are in the hierarchy, what they call top, they serve this purpose. And if they don't do, they are quickly abandoned, put aside. What we have seen also, and this is for the Jesuit Pope that we have now, who is so able to see through easier, and he says he runs and takes the bus and walks. People are satisfied, and all other things are tolerated. Then that's so absurd and so ill to say if Miss Merkel did this and that, and then everything else she does is tolerable. Yeah, if she would, it's children's world. But for it's really for children that are, don't know. Let's send it in the room. Well, just addressed Merkel. Apple's language service Siri had a breakdown. when you spoke Angela Merkel, you can speak to the iPhone, search me Angela Merkel, and you said, Angela Mutti Dorothea Fair Piggy is a German lion slave of the USA. She is, unfortunately, since the 22nd November 2005, Federal Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany. This is no fake. This was seemingly probably, and there it was astonished of how far the artificial intelligence is. That Siri somehow has an own consciousness, and the truth serves on some purposes where it's not really intended. It's a great transition to this subject. World Trade Organization, McDonald's and Coca-Cola advertise vaccines. World Health Organization cooperates with a marketing tool that's with members of Coca-Cola and McDonald's, and they want to use this new network to advertise vaccinations. So this network of the big companies in the USA, they are now included that vaccines get popular, and the description of that's incomplete from me here. It's written that contents and informations are not important, but nice pictures and some important bullet points, and then the whole thing is merchantable. And the World Health Organization, and here also a wonderful contradiction in itself, shows ridiculing. It shows where the way goes. Maybe you want to show the picture shortly. And the UN that uses the same logo as the World Health Organization. It's an interesting subject, it's an interesting logo, and this opportunity. We have the hint that Saudi Arabia receives a high position in the UN Human Rights Council. The ambassador in Genf is the head of a five-headed gremium of the Humanity Council of the United Nations. So here, a country where women are stoned and people decapitated every day, and where the family Saud has the saying, supported through USA since 1948. This politics has only been possible through this. This is only astonishing for those that are naive, and confirms the one who sees what happens. So the UN is an organization that serves those powers, and who is surprised by that, has to dig a little bit further and deeper. My last two news, Joe. Maybe you've heard of it. Life is very probable on Mars. There's liquid water. That's the beautiful message from NASA, and they present us the steep hills of Mars. Here flows water, and if you look at this picture, there's under that photo NASA, University of Arizona, German Press Agency. So it's an important clue. This is only never photos. This is never a singular photo to be seen. It's always photoshopped. If you deal with that, you can see that. And it serves, especially in these times, the hope. You see, dear Joe, if here everything would collapse, then we could settle on Mars. We can still settle on Mars, and Mars even has liquid water. Great. And in the next news I brought with me, they explain us even that they can soon plant tomatoes there. From NTV. Living containers, mining and crops. How Mars becomes habitable. 1 year you have to stand to be on Mars, but Mars is not friendly for life, but they changed it, and they say how warm it is, how when you have to get up in the morning, and the beautiful thing is that tomatoes will grow there now. You are astonished what the NASA had found out from the distance, from Houston, how they steer things there, and how this is to be done there. Well, they done something like, there's a movie with Damon the Martian, and a Mars expedition, he stays back and has to survive there somehow, and maybe plants tomatoes there. But the question is, to what are we prepared? You see, hope that when the earth gets when we destroyed earth, yeah, there has to be destroyed. There has to be a hope for the children. You know, the animals are kept in the zoo. They don't reproduce. Yeah, that's a problem. We have to make them hope. Without slaves, it doesn't go. And if we express it so drastically, and I point to that we at the moment have really the extremes climax. This climax is needed. That healing can be happen totally. We experience at the moment the impulses for those aspects that need more impulses, and we experience a dramatic confrontation. And this is would be the transition. And yeah, we can continue about this. How do we deal with that, with all this dramatics? And you sense it. Many people sense it really intensively, and are in unrest. And it is unresting. But there is hope, not en masse, but if we stay with us, yeah, this whole movements that take place now, it seems so that in over such a long time range had been controlled and planned. So finally, but they can only lead to that what through life itself gets into motion, and finally, so those energetic processes can only be in resonance with behind laying vivid things, and we sense it ever more. We get a stronger wish to find back to our own important powers, and we see this health process. On one hand, this chaos, the strong friction, this chaotic that in the monetary system gets visible. We've seen in the last the stock crash in the last days, in the German stock index under 9,500. That's for some damaging analysts important values, and all know that the hype of the last years is not really sustainable, and many things that from the money went there only went there because they steered the money, the energy streams, and if the friction on all parts. And on the other side, we sense that we don't have the power anymore to devote voluntarily to the strong motions, but that we wish stability and silence and an access to our own true being gets more important. It's the health process of those strong polarities, and this comes now. And we see in those news, I said at the beginning, we see the desperation of the powers who want to control everything, that want to bring everything in chaos and make order out of chaos. We see it with the refugee subject and 1,000 other subjects, that world government should be created, and for this all nations and governments have to be combined or destroyed, and world currency, and to this it belongs the crash of the currencies that we have now, and world religions. We see also the religions then now should fight against each other or should be destroyed so that a world religion can arise. But on the other hand, those are plans that are very old, but you see the desperation to push those plans still through, and it seems to be sand in the motor, and they see the desperation, yeah, but the clock is ticking in front of, or for the pushing through of those the consciousness process at the same time gets accelerated. You can see it's very about to closing the doors quickly before the last is awakened and presses is open again. So we are in this state right now. It's really like a race, and this race shows us there's also the other powers are confronted with strong counter movements. If all have been accepted here, and if they tell us it's not the case, there are many counter movements. You can in the momentary press also see it, and I'm convinced that Ms. Merkel is not staying chancelloress for so long, but it's nothing special. So the faces change always, but politics itself stays, of course, except for that it becomes another taste, side taste, that they can package it newly and sell it newly, and hope comes up again. And if something is used up too much, it has to be replaced, and it's replaced to new hope, by new hope. And this is very, very old. This you can see over centuries ever again. But this time, it seems to me, very obviously, we have another situation, because we, by our networking with each other, realize, perceive much more. We are more critic, we get into more friction, and all those polarities that at the moment are brought into friction with another, they are enormously important for the process of awakening. And also the one who, as a cross example of a totally different culture, takes hold of friction here in a small village in Bavaria, somehow brings many things up that up until now had been unthinkable, and brings healing into course. For the singular one, of course, is very dramatic, painful, and often when healing occurs, but a process that dramatically is accelerated now, and goes into the direction of another development. When it has reached a climax, can lead to a totally different solution than we imagine it. And this is what we can think, that on the one hand there's the hope to accommodate on Mars, maybe for one, it could be an interesting clue. And on the other hand, it's to state yourself and to see who am I really myself, that we sometimes don't even are conscious what we are not, or what we embody, or what we play, or what we looked, what we do. You know, I have to take care of my father or my sister and Aunt Mimi, and I cannot do so many things, or I live on social aid, I can differently. To make it conscious, am I really here in this incarnation to live the life as I live it now? Or what do I, where am I manipulated? And we are all extremely manipulated. And we show it here, how things often are very different than they show to us. It's part of being conscious, and it's also important to look everyone for themselves. How truthful am I acting with myself? And it's not for the other ones, it's for me in the same way. My father's desperate because I don't know who am I really. So it's a wonderful healing process, because most people think they know it and stay hung up in this illusion. I can say to you, I am so and so, I do this and that. But it's on the one hand a temporary expression. In 3-4 years you'll be probably perhaps someone totally else, not only optically on the outside, but also the view in the world can hopefully maybe change for you, because it's a process that belongs to natural development. On the other hand, it's only one aspect of your expression, because you have many levels to be found in many levels, and the counterplay of those different qualities makes you so precious in your individuality. So this illusionary quality, I am not at all, is for us basically something very important, because over this we can discover ourselves in our true quality. So basically everyone is unique. I can't replace you, you, me, never. And even if I could do your qualities as well as you, I could never be you. Yeah, it's a pity, because what you would be in your true quality would stay aside then. So everyone who watches us is unique, has come here with a certain quality, but the question is with which quality he lives it, or does he live the quality of his father or mother? So this uniqueness expresses itself always in the right form, but it can, in your consciousness, recognize, if you recognize a bigger perspective, you see it's only an accept. You see, I maybe I accept those challenges of my father, but it's not an expression of me myself, it's only a small aspect. And I myself can realize through my perception why he has a big face. Actually, it's only a little aspect. He takes such a big space for every day, then I can encounter this aspect and say, well, in these and that parts you have not lost that much. This subject is dismissed from me. The subject of my father had been his. I've watched them, but they're not that important for me. Then this healing process comes, and here has to be its holistic, gives room to those aspects. So it's not about those aspects are bad, they have to be replaced, but they maybe have a too high dominance. They have to be seen in the right measure, and there are other aspects in me that have no space yet. It's pity. There's a creative aspect in me that I maybe don't live. There's maybe an aggressive aspect that if I at once do a certain sports, can live it out, that seems to me totally not familiar. That's maybe terrifying me. And then we get into another relationship in peace with ourselves, and this is what basically the big headline is. If we are in peace with ourselves, and with this I mean not that this peace first have to arise, but if we get in touch with it, because peace is already there, then at once arises a bigger understanding of peace in the world, and we can say, yes, there's the enormous frictions, but these frictions serve a higher purpose that I as a singular man cannot see, because I'm only representative of singular aspects. But I know from the deepest understanding that the relevant things show up in the form as they do now, that I can be in peace with myself and with the world. And first, in this time, over the pathway of extreme friction, it works. Not now through leaning back and escaping the world or extreme meditating, but by seeing through the world, by perceiving the world. And you said maybe you have unique abilities that we don't use, creative things, and for the viewer who is really stuck somewhere and desperate with his life and ask himself, what do I do with my life? Then you start to see things that you can do, things that you never done. If it's pottery or sports, where you say, just to look, is this mine or not? That you at once start with, as an old person, to do sports that you didn't like as a child, or writing, or making music, or painting, buying a flute. 1,000 possibilities to do other things than you do the whole time, just to see, well, does there something start to come out, what maybe is a part of me, a creativity to discover it, or aggression that at sports or at boxing maybe can come out, to make themselves as conscious, to get there, that you can get to this inner peace that's always there, that's inside my heart. I cannot find it in meditation, but maybe I can find it in meditation, or just by doing things that I haven't done already. It maybe can add to this, I can confirm this, what you said, that it's not about that you achieve certain results with what you do for a new year now. It's if you do pottery, it has to become a good pot or vase. No, just to get to approach an aspect that hasn't played a big role for you yet. It's important for many people, or they want to enforce certain things. There's another way I want to point to that's maybe even closer. If you have assorted yourself in a certain ideological group, like a left one, or I say, meanwhile, I'm not that clear anymore, I'm a little bit in conflict, whatever, then it would be a great idea if you consciously deal with the opposite side and pretend for one day as if you would be totally different. And the same thing is, of course, for the one who says, I feel as right-wing, and sees out of its challenge out of this view, although he knows that's maybe all nonsense, but here it's stepping into the shoes of the other one, and over this way, interestingly, perceive own friction, and this maybe makes him angry if you step in there, or you get angry, and what is there? What provokes such an aggression with me? And at once you sense that if you open yourself to the subject, that something gets into flow that up until now had been very suppressed or stuck. So basically, it's about bringing things into motion, to allow things getting into motion, and not to get into friction so much, and not holding on to things. This is, you have to say, basically. And finally, if you get conscious yourself every more, then you get also conscious that behind everything we experience there's a divine cosmic order, and that we can have trust that what happens makes sense, that life happens while we imagine something different. But the more we get conscious, the more we can maybe approach the life that we wanted to live once. Yes, absolutely. And we experience the time, and I consciously take this term that is normally with fear. We experience the time of apocalypse, and apocalypse means uncovering. And this uncovering is only feared of those who want to cover something. For all others, it's uncovering is possibly a shock, a surprise, because under or behind the curtain something totally different appears than you've maybe expected it. But it is the freedom in itself, the freeing up of those structures that especially confine us, and those are our own, from by ourselves supported and kept up prisons in the head and on other parts, and they start slowly and very obvious to lose stability. We see cracks in the wall. Many say you have to be careful because there are horrible things behind this wall, and we are strongly kept in occupation and in business and actively. But it needs only a little trust, a little confidence, a little courage, and you can quickly then see that what's so much feared by those groups can be nothing else but that what's expected from us and hoped for in many parts. And we are so long bullied that it's time for that those structures will finally collapse. So if the world collapses and the theater would collapse, it's not so bad, because the life is so much bigger than the theater, and the theater is only a little excerpt that shows us the pseudo world, the world of that they speak, the artificial structure, the world that when we see through is like little clubs that prevent that we too much look to the left or the right with our eyes. It's not only symbolic, it has to do with thematics. I've seen we are really confined on the various levels, and it comes the time of freeing up now, and before there comes a little chaos. In prison, there's they clap with pots, and the wardens run around and scream. So it's really something going on, you can say. Yes, and this should not only bring one to unrest. So this things are going on, and we can achieve peace. Peace is always there. We can find this place in us, and there prevail there when we are in unrest. And here again, to add to that, what I always again give as an important hint here, you don't permanently have to stand in contact with those inner aspects of you, like a monk or someone who very strongly has nothing else in focus. But it's enough, only each day, if you rest in yourself, in your being, because in yourself there's a peace and inner peace, and this needs to be touched again. This has an effect that goes strongly over those things that are temporarily measurable, but there's this kind of touching that inside of you, like a light ray, falls into a dark room, can transform the dark, and it has a effect across times. Thank you, Alexander. What's a pleasure for me.